Hi, we're Richard and Jackie from Early Retirement Wanderlust.
We've just got to the end of a 3-week skiing campervan trip in the French Alps, and we have had the most fabulous time.
So we've got 1,000 miles to drive north, home, back to Yorkshire, which gives us plenty of time to think about the things that we've learnt from our time in the Alps. So that journey back didn't quite go as planned.
Yeah, we're actually back in England. The journey through France was really, really clear, and the traffic was really good. The farmers were on strike with all their tractors up round Paris, but that didn't affect us. So we just kept going, and we got to the port at about 9 o'clock at night.
Yeah, it was really unlike me. I can't normally cope with more than 4 hours of driving, and some bizarre thing happened that I just kept going and felt fine, and so we just kept going.
So we'd booked a flexible ferry ticket, and that meant that we could catch a ferry up to 72 hours early, and we've saved a Schengen day ready for our summer holidays.
It did mean that we got back into Dover ridiculously late, so you know our favourite stopover. It's always lovely when you're passing through Dover to sleep behind the police station, so we just crashed there for the night and then had the delights of driving the only 300 miles from Dover up to Yorkshire.
And they were definitely the hardest 300 miles of the whole journey. Literally, you come off the boat at Dover and you hit roadworks, and we just seemingly went through a wall of traffic all the way up. But we're home, and it's fab being back in the Dales.
So, back to our original plans, where we were going to talk to you on the journey home about the things that we've learned from the trip. We've had loads of time to chat about it, so we're just going to share our thoughts with you of how it was living in the Alps for a month in the van and what we've learned from it.
So we thought we'd share with you some of the things that we've learnt living in the van for 4 weeks in the French Alps. And the biggest game changer for us was packing an electric fan heater. It meant that we could conserve our LPG gas. The tank is actually still nearly full. We only used it for cooking, and it was an easy way of heating the van. And we actually needed to use it for maybe 15-20 minute blast at a time, 3 or 4 times a day, and that was it, because it's such a tiny van.
The next thing we learned, I was so excited for before we went on the trip, which was the wonders of the Karcher window vac. How incredibly sad. It was being recommended to us by loads of our viewers when we were talking about our concerns about condensation in the winter. And where has the Karcher vac been for all of our van life? Absolute revelation. dead easy to keep the moisture down and the windows clear. We didn't have that horrible feeling of using microfibers and then having to wring it out in sub-zero temperatures so your hands freeze. It was just a dream. So if you haven't got one, you definitely need to get one. It was a game changer.
When we travel in the winter, we always take loads of extra blankets for layers to keep us warm, and we definitely needed them this time. There was a couple of nights where it got definitely below -10. One night we think got to -18, and we used all the blankets. But I did also notice that there was a draft coming through on this side of my bed. So I did use one of the blankets just to shove into the spaces where the breeze was coming through, and we were actually quite toasty warm. The blanket layers worked, and the brushed cotton duvet, which I think does make a difference. The first half of the trip was so cold, we kept the pop top down, and actually we never have it up in the winter, but the weather forecast did improve, so we had a bit of a revelation.
Yeah, we were really brave, and it was with a sense of trepidation because in winter we don't like putting the pop top up, and we put it up because it wasn't going to rain and it wasn't going to be much below zero, and we can't believe how it changed our whole van experience in the middle of winter.
Yes, for the first few weeks, it was like living in some tiny little box. There was just stuff everywhere. Obviously, when you're skiing, you need a lot of ski layers and clothes, ski boots, and it was all just rammed in the front of the van. But as soon as you could have the pop top up, the difference in the amount of storage that we had, and actually drying our towels, strangely, because the heat just rose, everything dried more easily. It was great.
And for me, who's a little bit taller, it was just a revelation to be able to stand up. So I wasn't constantly stooped over. I could get dressed with ease. I could cook with ease. It just really changed things for us.
It has made us realise when we go camping in winter that we can actually have the pop top up more than we thought we normally do.
One of the things that we were concerned with prior to going was, in such a small space, how do we organise our stuff? And it was really simple. It was a really, really simple life when we were out there. We were either in our ski gear or we were in what we would call our van gear or our comfortable clean stuff. So I just made sure that I'd got all my sweaty ski gear all bagged up, and then I'd got a bag of nice clean clothes that I got changed into as soon as we got back, and never the twain would mix, and it worked really well, and we managed to live on the road or live out at the campsite for a month without getting too stinky.
After living in the van for a month in some quite challenging winter conditions, there are a few things that we need to have a look at before we go back out to the Alps, and a few things that need fixing. An absolute bonus that we found, being in such cold temperatures, is that the van is actually really well insulated. We weren't cold, but there were a few mornings when the temperature was so cold outside that the inside of the van did have frost on it, particularly just in this little corner on either side of the tailgate. We didn't realise for maybe a week or so that that was causing issues, that the condensation when it defrosted was coming down into the carpet here, and there was quite a little bit of damp here. So for the second week we did have the boot open for an hour or so each day to try and just get rid of that condensation, and it's something that we need to look at before we go out again. We think maybe a little bit of bubble wrap or some sort of insulation, an extra layer of insulation, just to put against the whole of the back of the boot when we're in the van.
You wouldn't think that one of the first fixes that we've got to look at is to do with the fridge, particularly seen as we were living in sub-zero temperatures for part of the month. But for whatever reason, the fridge wasn't quite working as well as we thought it would. Now, we don't know whether it was because it was particularly cold, but it was on electric hookup, so it should have been working fine. And the freezer was really struggling to freeze things. It was keeping stuff cold, but it wasn't freezing things. So we definitely need to get someone who knows what they're talking about to actually have a look at it.
The window shades that we chose were from a company called Van Shades, and they are amazing. They do keep the van really, really well insulated. We have had a problem with them before where the strings go in them, and that happened unfortunately on the way down to Dover. So we've had a month where this van shade hasn't actually worked. We've just had to keep it propped up with a bit of wood. Last time that happened, Van Shades were brilliant. We just sent off the whole unit, they restrung it for us, and I'm hoping if we get in touch with them this week that we'll be able to get that sorted before we go back out again. It's pretty good going after nearly 7 years of van travel. We've only had a couple of problems with them and easily sorted.
After 2,000 miles of winter driving, it's no wonder that Nelson is looking a bit grubby and grimy. He's got salt all over him, muck all over him. He does need a good wash. Back in the day, in my first few years of VW campervan ownership, I was obsessive about washing him on a weekly basis. It was my little ritual, and he was always polished up. Since we've early retired and we're traveling so much, we just never get time to clean him. So we're going to treat him to a bit of a luxury jet wash down in town, and we'll take him home and give him a bit of a wax and a polish and see exactly what he's like once we remove this whole layer of grime. And Jackie keeps reminding me that one of the things I need to do as well is to get up onto the roof and just give the solar panel a really good clean, because keeping that clean in winter just makes it so much easier for it to top the batteries up, which we will obviously need for the summer.
We've recently bought a dehumidifier in our cottage so that we could dry the washing mainly, and we have discovered it's quite amazing at drying out the van as well. So when we got back last night, we set the dehumidifier up for 3 or 4 hours. It did get about half a litre of water out of it, but at least we know that some of that moisture that was building up has now gone.
Something that we're going to have a play with is to do with the pop top, and we have to just give a quick shout out to 2 of our subscribers that we met on the very first day we're in Bourg Saint Maurice, Alison and Stuart. They had just bought their Camper King VW campervan and just were ingenious in terms of keeping it warm, and it's something we never considered. You can get external wraps for pop tops that just go around the outside and keep it nice and cozy and warm up there. However, Alison was really creative and came up with some internal wraps that wouldn't get wet, that were dead easy to store, and hopefully were dead easy to create out of the metallic bubble wrap type material. So we're going to have a little play with that before we go out again. So hopefully we can be a little bit more confident in keeping the pop top up for longer.
So we survived our first 4-week campervan adventure in the French Alps. There's quite a few things that we've learnt along the way.
Yeah, and we haven't got the answers to everything, and that's just one of the amazing things about campervan life, that every time you go away you always learn something about how the van works or how your daily routines work, and we just can't wait to get back out and do a little bit more skiing.
Yeah, so hopefully we've got another 3 weeks in early spring where we'll go back out, make the most of our season pass that we bought with the skiing, and just enjoy another few weeks down in Bourg Saint Maurice.
So that's it. See you later.
Bye.